There's a familiar way that most artists paint faux chrome lettering. And then there's what happens when you start making your own reflection decisions. To be clear, there is nothing wrong with the traditional faux chrome approach. It's clean, it's recognizable, and it creates great results. A lot of artists learn how to create or render faux chrome lettering based on that method because, well, it works. But what I want you to start thinking about during this video is how you can expand on that look once you understand the basics. So we're not talking about abandoning the traditional method. The method I still use is heavily based on that traditional method. But we're going to start making more intentional design decisions. Typically what we see is the cooler colors are generally all on the top. And the warmer tones are generally toward the bottom. And generally what you see is the reflection band is normally pretty level. This is the kind of approach you'll see in a lot of faux chrome illustrations. And this absolutely works. It reads as chrome instantly. It's a proven approach, and that's why so many artists start here. But if you look closer, you might notice something. The reflections are basically acting like a graphic stripe. Each letter is being treated essentially the same. That's a relatively straight reflection line, and that's a very easy formula to repeat, and it also makes it appealing. So at the end of the day, both of these methods start based on the same basic traditional framework. So let's take a look at a more decision-based example. Again, the basic framework is the same. So I'm going to begin by creating the sky reflection at the top. The cooler tones are at the top. Now this is the point where we can start deviating from the traditional chrome formula and start making some of our own decisions. I prefer to think about little defects or minor defects within the lettering. So when I go in and start developing my horizon line, I don't necessarily keep a straight line. This is raw umber to start this process out, and I'm really working on creating that horizon line, or the illusion of that horizon line. For the A, do something similar. And then you can add more subtle reflections in lines. And I may even turn some of these up a little bit sharper. Kind of follow that beveled edge. Once you have the darker brown tones in, I still like to come in with a little bit warmer earth tone. This is burnt orange. You can see how this color even warms up the umber that we put down previously. So at this point it's pretty clear. The only real change as far as decisions is that we change that horizon line. It's no longer almost just a straight graphic line running through all of the letters. Each letter has its own little contorted reflection. And the next thing I'm going to do is come in with some over-reduced black and just really enhance the horizon line. And if you notice, I'm not carrying this line all the way across this letter. Might even add a little bit darker line to some of these other lines that we created. So although I've added a few more elements to version 2 of our faux chrome lettering, I'm still keeping it very simple. Adding too much complexity will kill the illusion. The next step is to come in with an opaque white and really push the contrast. What we're going to develop now is the simulated reflection of the sunlight. So it should be directly above our horizon line and then gradually fading up. But this is also where we can make some of our own decisions. I'm going to use a freehand shield, kind of mask off the horizon on the T so that I can get a clean, sharp edge. That's very clean. And then I like to fade this up. And I did this a little bit on version 1 without even thinking about it, but I'll take the highlight kind of along the edge of the letter. The other thing is that now that highlight is very stark. I mean, that's a very defined edge there. We can clean that up or disguise it slightly by just adding a light glint. What if we tried to freehand that highlight? I think I like the freehand version a little better. I'm also not trying to make it a clean, smooth blend that just gradually goes up. You can see the strokes. What we're really doing is making it a little more dynamic, a little more interesting to look at, more pleasing for the eye. Then I can come back in with my over-reduced black and clean up a little bit of these areas. But here's the decision that I'm going to make. It doesn't have to be a super sharp, crisp line all the way across each letter. For example, this T, we already had that highlight kind of glowing right there. If I take this black all the way across that, I'm just going to have to rework that again. So at this point, what I'm probably going to do is begin removing the outer vinyl mask and start filling in the background, and I will complete that off camera. Okay, before I move on, there's a couple little areas that need to be touched up. I got a little overspray here. I've got a mark from one of my stencils here. So what I'm going to do is create a little bit of a highlight up there. There, and maybe just to keep things looking the same, a little bit in the A. Use the same treatment that we used on the T earlier. just add a little bit of a glow here. Drying in between. I'm allowing a little bit of paint to flow, and then I'm drying with air only. Now I've gone back to the cerulean blue, and I just want to push these highlights up high back a little bit. At this point, I've gone back to the cobalt blue, which is the darker shade of blue. And what I want to do is I want to really set some of these edges apart from the edge that I haven't unmasked yet. So I'm going to work just a little bit right above this edge on the T. What I'm trying to simulate here is maybe if these chrome letters are slightly curved, so that bottom edge is catching the darker tone in the sky. Same thing on the A, just right at the top. As far as the beveled edge border is concerned, there's one decision I'm going to make that is a little bit different than what I did in the first example. In the first example, the reflections basically travel straight from the face all the way across the beveled edge. That's the one decision I'm going to make a little bit differently when I create the beveled edge shadows here. So to create that edge, I'm starting with the over-reduced black, and I'm leaving room for the shadow to breathe in between. And it doesn't necessarily have to line up exactly with the line on the face of the letter. Can add a few little darker striations up in the sky reflection, again just kind of simulating those minor imperfections. Got a little carried away on that side, but that's okay. So at this point, I've gone back to the opaque white, and I just want to create the final bright highlights, those little sparkles that really make it pop. We've already got a few on the face of the letters. I think I'll probably leave those alone. And the other thing that this is great for is kind of disguising or taking your eye away from some of those mistakes that I made earlier, or mistakes that maybe you might make, like for example where that slight overspray line is. The specular highlight doesn't have to be on the corner. I can put one right here. Same thing on the T. I can move it closer to over where this little line is left, which was a remnant. I still had some dried paint on a stencil. Oh, I can also throw a little bit of a glint right there in that area. Kind of disguise my mistake there from earlier. And then put another one right up here. So this is the same basic faux chrome concept, but there were very different reflection decisions between each example. So the traditional formula gives you a solid starting point. It helps you create an effect that viewers will absolutely recognize. It's tried and it's true, but simply copying a formula doesn't really help you develop your own artistic growth. Real growth begins when you start asking questions like, how can I push this formula farther in order to serve my own design, decisions, and goals? Because when reflections start reacting differently from one letter to the next, the chrome stops feeling like a graphic effect and starts to feel more like an object that could actually be sitting on a surface. And I'm by no means suggesting that you should abandon the traditional methods or abandon the methods that work, those methods that have been around for years and years and years. You can still use those tried and true methods. I do, but build on them, expand on them, shape them to your own needs, make them your own, and make your decisions more intentional. So the next time you're painting faux chrome lettering, try asking yourself a few simple questions. Does every reflection need to remain basically straight? Can contrast help certain parts of the lettering read stronger? Would subtle distortion make the chrome feel more alive or even more dimensional? And what, if anything, could I simplify to make this illusion read more clearly? And last but not least, does this look designed or does it look repeated? Those are the kinds of decisions that can dramatically change how dynamic the final result actually is. And this doesn't just apply to faux chrome lettering either. You can apply the same kind of thinking to almost anything that you paint. And in the end, you can finish it out with the background however you see fit. So in conclusion, this channel is not about teaching you how to recreate effects. It's about teaching you how to think and make your own artistic decisions. And if that kind of decision-based teaching resonates with you, then consider subscribing and follow along. We've got a lot more to explore. I'm Trevor with Wicked Art Studio. I will see you next time.